Hello and welcome to my first video for a while. Sorry for not posting in a long time. I sort of got burnt out from coding and game development altogether. I have recently gotten back into it a bit because I was doing coding at school and really enjoyed it. So I signed up for a game jam called the Comfy Jam Winter. It was a 14-day game jam and I had the idea of making a game similar to Overcooked. If you don't know what Overcooked is, it's basically just a really coded cooking game that you play with friends. But my game can't be played with friends, at least for now, because since it's made for a game jam, no one really plays games multiplayer. So, as you might know, most game jams have a restriction or a limitation that you have to follow. So for this game, I just had to have an overly complicated transition, which I didn't focus on that much honestly, but I think mine was pretty good, especially since most didn't have any transition at all. Unlike my other game jam videos, I've actually taken videos during the game jams and I jotted down what I did in a little diary. Well, now that all the explaining's over, let's get to what happened on the first day. On the first day, I started by making the basics like movement and also made some 3D models for a milk carton, marshmallows, a cup, a kettle, and a penguin in a chef outfit. I had also, before the jam, made some music, but I think that's within the rules. If not, sorry. On the second day, I wasted a lot of time trying to import my character from Blender and failing. My character's apron kept glitching out, which was really annoying, but after a while I just dealt with it and made the movement work and look better than before. After I did that, I decided to go back and I fixed the character up and started making some 3D models for a counter and started making a sync model. On day 3, I made an interaction system that lets you pull an item out of a storage container and place it on top. Then you pick it up off the top of the counter and move it around. But I didn't have the code to let you place it back down yet. I don't know why I decided on marshmallows as a placeholder food item for all these storage containers and whatnot, but I guess they just called to me. There were some bugs with picking items up, like one way it would force you to move backwards because the food was half clipped into the player. I fixed that one easily by just moving the item forward a bit so that it wasn't clipped into the player. I spent the rest of the day 3D modeling. I finished modeling the sink and I colored the sink and basic cardboard cupboard. I also modeled a storage container for the marshmallows and added an image of a marshmallow on top. On the fourth day, I showed together a system that let you put an item down, then pick it up if you place it on spawner, because it would just spawn a new item. So I decided the best choice was just not letting you place an item on top of the spawner. Funny thing is, I've just thought of it now that you can technically soft lock yourself because you can't bin items in the game, so hopefully you don't do that if you decide to play. I did also solve a bug in which you could place an item on top of another item, but that was easily solved with some basic variable work. One bug I didn't solve as easily was a bug needing you to exit and re-enter collision to pick up and place down items. I forgot to take footage of it though. I think I'm writing this without checking that. I should probably check that, huh? Never mind, I actually do have footage of that. Ta-da! All my fabulous bugs. It's fine, everyone's code has bugs, especially if you aren't a professional and are rushing a bit for something like this where it's timed. On the 5th day, I figured out the bug and what was causing it. So, if you know anything about games, you would probably know about collisions or hitboxes, which are used to check if something is near another, and the item had collision that would appear and disappear when you collected or placed down the item. So it was changing my code, which checks if a collision is overlapping another or not. And since the collisions were appearing and disappearing, they're triggering that code, making you have to exit to basically reset the code to what it should be. So I removed the collisions on the items because it served no real purpose anyway. Then once that was solved, I realized I forgot to make the model for the most important ingredient in hot chocolate, the cocoa powder. So I modeled that and a cup with cocoa powder in it because that was also needed to show the stages of making the hot chocolate. On day 6, I imported some more models into Unreal Engine and started making the code to combine ingredients to make a combined piece of food. However, I did make many errors and had many bugs, but got some progress done. I had one bug that literally just made meshes say, blueprint bad. Luckily, it was an easy fix. I just had to re-add in some blueprints I accidentally deleted. I made some more progress after that by adding some strings that let the food know what they are and what they're allowed to combine with. On the 7th day, I fixed some bugs with the item combination and made a kettle spawning base that works a bit different to the others, as it spawns a kettle at the start of the round and then acts as a normal counter where you can place things on. I then made it so you can pour hot water into the cup of cocoa powder. I played some of the other games that were already submitted, and I made some more images for storage of other items outside of marshmallows. The cocoa powder image didn't look all that amazing. On the 8th day, I made the image of the cocoa powder look actually somewhat decent, and I made some more models for the storage containers of different foods. I also made a kettle filling system, which was decently challenging to make, and I started working on adding a water gauge to the kettle model and getting it to change depending on if it's full or not. Day 9, I won't show any of the footage, but I did make my code a lot easier to alter down the line because there was so much stuff everywhere that wasn't necessary. I fixed a really annoying glitch that made you have to exit and re-enter collisions. You might be asking, didn't you already fix that? There was another one I had to fix. I completely forgot what actually caused the bug this time, but it was really annoying to solve. I made the kettle be able to be heated, and after some small work, actually give the kettle back rather than absorbing it into itself, which was another fun little bug to handle. That bug also took quite a bit of time to solve. I then made the milk and marshmallows work with combining. I made models for all the new combined drink versions, which I did by mostly just changing materials, but some other bigger changes. And I also made steam for the kettle, which I've never done before. Made a progress bar for the water filling percent and how heated up it is. On day 10, I made a countdown clock. I then made a bit of an ordering system, and some people in this game jam I guess just aren't as naturally talented and amazing at coding as me, and voted for a 3-day extension of the game jam, which I might also need in the end. Who knows? Maybe my natural talent will fail me. Well, I do know actually, because the game jam's done, but you get the point. Day 11, I worked on the ordering system again. It's so terribly set out that if I were to continue working on this game, I'd have to overhaul it completely. There's so much code just used to check if this and this. I then decided to rig the character, found some cool sound effects online, and animated the character, but sadly had to then re-rig it as the rig that I was using didn't work in Unreal Engine. So later on I had to reanimate my character, which was a bit annoying, but not as bad as it could have been. On day 12, I made the animations again, and I fixed some bugs with the order system. I then imported the animations and had some issues, and the character kept disappearing whenever I played an animation. But I discovered that it wasn't actually disappearing, they were just shrinking down really small. So I had to do some reporting and stuff, which is always fun. Day 3, I made a pause menu and a main menu. I made it so orders come in naturally over time, which before I was making them come through by clicking a button. I made a high score saving feature, then I made some stuff that I could hopefully transform into an end of round menu. Hint, I did. Day 14, I fixed the animations again. I made the high score system work on the end screen. I made a system to reset your high score. I made falling and landing animations that I'm going to use for my overly complicated transition. I made the transition all but the loading screen is in place there. I had a bug I fixed which let you move before you were allowed to, which is cheating, and cheating's not allowed. Day 15, the jam was extended, and I made the loading screen and made it move. I also added the main menu's background and started working on the game jam page. I added sound effects, music, and I made 4 levels. The levels I made are a cube, a circle that's really hard to navigate, a cup of hot chocolate, and a level with a bridge in between 2 different squares. I made a level select screen, fixed the score system, and it shows your high score on each level. And I made all the menus that needed to be redirected to the level select screen redirected. I fixed up some menu stuff so music plays in the menus, which it wasn't before. On the 16th day, I woke up and really quickly changed some stuff on the level select screen, like adding a high score text that just says high score, because it didn't look very clear with just a number under the level. Then for the rest of the day, I did nothing because I went to watch Lord of the Rings movie marathon with some friends. It was very good. It was my first time watching the series, and I see why people love it so much, especially the large scale battles. Anyway, back to coding. On day 17, I was so annoyed that Unreal Engine has removed HTML5 exporting from their game. I tried to do it like that, and it's just not available anymore. If you don't know what HTML exporting is, it's basically just used to let a game play in a browser. So, to try make the game playable in browser, I attempted to time travel back to Unreal Engine 4, because in that version it would let you make a game in HTML5, but it would take too long to reverse engineer my code to work in Unreal Engine 4. A sad conclusion to the game jam, but I had to make the game jam downloadable, so less people will probably play it and enjoy it. But I'm still very proud of what I achieved. I hope Unreal Engine will bring back HTML exports, but I see why they wouldn't, as it's only really used for things like game jams. But if you want to play my game, it's got a link in the description. We did have an 18th day, but I'd already finished my game, so I finally rested a bit. I'd highly suggest that if you're interested in coding, that you try out a game jam. They're great and a really fun time. They force you to make sure that you stay focused on a project and try your best. Game jams are also great because they force you to be creative and think outside the way you would normally do it. So, for example, I don't make transitions ever, probably because most of my games haven't gone that far, but this forced me to try making a transition, and I think mine turned out pretty well. If you do one, just make sure to still take breaks and hang out with friends and family, especially for longer game jams like this one. If you enjoyed this, then please like, subscribe, and comment what sort of games you think I should make. I hope anyone watching this has a great day. Bye!